The baby's wail pierced the quiet of the living room like a siren, sharp and unrelenting, shattering the fragile peace of the evening. Elliot froze, his hand hovering over the steaming mug of coffee, his heart sinking as the cries grew louder, more desperate. Sam, cradling their 1-year-old daughter Lily, whispered soft reassurances, but her tiny face crumpled, red with distress, as if some invisible terror loomed nearby. It was always like this when Grandpa Tom visited. The moment the old man stepped through the door of their modest Virginia home, Lily's usual giggles turned to screams, her small body tensing as if she could sense something no one else could. Elliot exchanged a glance with Sam, their eyes locking in a silent question. What is it about him? Elliot and Sam had built their life together brick by brick, defying the whispers of their small town and the weight of their own doubts. They'd met 5 years ago at a community theater in Richmond, where Elliot's quiet intensity as a stagehand caught Sam's eye, his easy charm lighting up the room as the lead actor. Their love had grown through late-night talks, shared dreams, and the kind of laughter that made the world feel softer. When they adopted Lily, their world felt completely a family forged not by blood but by choice, fierce and unshakable. Or so they thought. Tom, Sam's father, had always been a complicated figure. A retired mechanic with a gruff voice and a permanent scowl, he'd never fully embraced his son's life. "I don't get it," he'd said when Sam came out at 19, his words heavy with disappointment. But when Lily arrived, Tom softened her, so it seemed. He'd shown up with a stuffed bear, his calloused hands awkward as he handed it over, muttering about wanting to be part of her life. Elliot had wanted to believe him, to see past the years of cold distance. But Lily's cries told a different story. That evening, as the autumn rain tapped against the windows, Tom sat stiffly on the couch, his weathered hands folded in his lap. "She's just fussy," he said, his voice low, almost defensive, as Lily wailed in Sam's arms. "Babies cry. Ain't nothing to it." But Elliot noticed the way Tom's eyes darted away, avoiding Lily's gaze, as if her cries were an accusation he couldn't face. Sam rocked Lily gently, his jaw tight. "She's not like this with anyone else, Dad," he said, his voice steady but laced with frustration. "Not with me. Not with Elliot. Not even with strangers at the park. Just you." The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy, and Elliot felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain outside. Tom shifted uncomfortably, his fingers twitching. "You're reading too much into it," he muttered, but there was a crack in his voice, a tremor that made Elliot's stomach twist. He'd always trusted his instincts, honed by years of watching people from the shadows of the theater stage. Something was wrong, something deeper than a baby's tantrum. As the evening wore on, Lily's cries softened into hiccups, her tiny body exhausted. Sam carried her upstairs to her crib, leaving Elliot alone with Tom. The silence was thick, broken only by the creak of the old house and the distant rumble of thunder. Elliot studied Tom, searching for a clue in the lines of his face, the way his hands gripped the armrest too tightly. "You ever gonna tell us what's really going on?" Elliot asked, his voice soft but firm, cutting through the quiet. Tom's eyes snapped up, startled, and for a moment, Elliot saw something flicker in them: guilt, fear, or maybe both. Before Tom could answer, Sam's footsteps echoed on the stairs, and the moment was gone. But Elliot couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something dangerous, something that could unravel the family they'd fought so hard to build. He didn't know it yet, but the truth was closer than he could imagine, and it would change everything. The next morning, the house felt different, like the air itself was holding its breath. Lily was calm now, her cheeks flushed with sleep as she played with her blocks on the living room floor. but the memory of her cries lingered, a puzzle Elliot couldn't solve. He sat at the kitchen table with Sam, their hands brushing as they shared a pot of coffee, the warmth of their touch grounding them against the unease. "We can't keep ignoring this," Elliot said, keeping his voice low so Lily wouldn't hear. "She's trying to tell us something. Babies don't just scream like that for no reason." Sam sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I know. But what are we supposed to do? Accuse my dad of what? Being scary. He's not exactly warm and fuzzy, but he's not a monster." Elliot leaned forward, his eyes searching Sam's. "You saw his face last night. He was hiding something. I felt it." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "What if it's not just about him not liking us? What if it's worse?" Sam's expression darkened, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. He loved his father, despite the years of distance, but he couldn't deny the strangeness of Tom's behavior. "Okay," he said finally. "Let's keep an eye on him. Next time he's here, we watch closely." Over the next week, they did just that. Tom's visits became a study in tension, each one marked by Lily's relentless cries and Tom's growing unease. Elliot started noticing small things, the way Tom's hands shook when he held a glass, the way he avoided touching Lily, even when she reached for him. Once, when Tom thought no one was looking, Elliot caught him staring at Lily with an expression that wasn't anger or indifference, it was fear. It was on the 8th day that everything changed. Sam's sister, Claire, had come over to help with Lily, her warm laughter filling the house as she played peek-boo with her niece. Claire, 35 and fiercely protective, had always been the bridge between Sam and their father, smoothing over their conflicts with her quick wit and open heart. She was also the only one in the family who'd fully embraced Elliot from the start, calling him the best thing that ever happened to Sam. As Claire bounced Lily on her knee, Tom arrived, his heavy boots thudding against the hardwood floor. The moment he stepped into the room, Lily's face crumpled, her cries sharp and immediate. Claire frowned, looking from Lily to Tom. "What's with her?" she asked, her tone light but curious. "She's fine until you show up, Dad." Tom's face tightened, his jaw clenching. "She's just a baby," he said gruffly, but his eyes darted to the door, as if he wanted to bolt. Elliot watched him closely, his heart pounding. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. That night, after Tom left, Claire stayed for dinner, the three of them sharing a quiet meal while Lily slept upstairs. As they cleared the plates, Claire's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it, her brow furrowing. "That's weird," she muttered. "Dad just texted me to check on Lily. Said he's worried about her." Sam raised an eyebrow. "Worried? Since when does he worry about anything?" Elliot's pulse quickened. "What exactly did he say?" Claire scrolled through her phone, her face growing pale. "He said, make sure Lily's safe. There's things you don't know." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Elliot's mind raced, piecing together the fragments: Lily's cries, Tom's fear, the cryptic message. He didn't know what it meant, but he knew one thing for certain: they couldn't ignore it any longer. The text from Tom burned in Elliot's mind like a warning flare, its vague menace keeping him awake long after Claire left. He lay beside Sam, listening to the soft rhythm of his breathing, but sleep wouldn't come. There's things you don't know. What could Tom mean? And why was Lily, their innocent, joyful daughter, caught in the middle of it? The next morning, Elliot woke with a plan. He wasn't one for confrontation, but the unease gnawing at his chest demanded action. Over breakfast, he proposed a visit to Tom's house, a small, weathered ranch-style home on the outskirts of town, where Tom had lived alone since Sam's mother passed a decade ago. "We need answers," Elliot said, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. "If he's hiding something, we'll see it in his space." Sam hesitated, his fork hovering over his pancakes. "You really think he's, what? Dangerous?" "He's my dad, Elliot. He's rough around the edges, but he's not some villain." "I'm not saying he's a villain," Elliot replied, softening his tone. "But Lily's telling us something. And that text, it's not nothing." He reached across the table, squeezing Sam's hand. "We do this together. For her." Sam nodded, his jaw tight. "Okay. For Lily." They dropped Lily off with Claire, who agreed to babysit without asking too many questions, though her eyes held a flicker of worry. The drive to Tom's house was quiet. The only sound the hum of the car and the occasional patter of rain against the windshield. Elliot's mind churned with possibilities, each one darker than the last. Was Tom sick? Hiding a secret from his past? Or was it something worse, something that made Lily recoil instinctively? Tom's house stood at the end of a gravel road, its paint peeling and windows dim. The yard was overgrown, dotted with rusted car parts and an old swing set that creaked in the wind. As they stepped out of the car, Elliot felt a prickle of unease, like the air itself was charged with secrets. Tom answered the door in a flannel shirt, his face unreadable. "Didn't expect you boys," he said, his voice gruff but not unfriendly. He stepped aside, letting them in. The house smelled of stale coffee and motor oil, the living room cluttered with old newspapers and tools. A single framed photo of Sam and Claire as kids sat on the mantel, dusty but prominent. "We need to talk, Dad," Sam said, his tone firm. "About Lily. About why she cries every time you're around." Tom's eyes narrowed, but he gestured to the couch. "Sit. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." His words were dismissive, but Elliot caught the slight tremble in his hands as he poured himself a glass of water. They sat, the tension thick enough to choke on. Elliot took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Tom, we're not here to accuse you. But something's off. Lily's not a fussy baby. She's happy, calm except with you. And that text you sent Claire, it scared us." Tom's face hardened, his fingers tightening around the glass. "I told you, she's just a baby. They cry. You're looking for ghosts where there ain't none. Then why'd you tell Claire to make sure Lily's safe?" Sam pressed, leaning forward. "What don't we know, Dad?" For a moment, Tom said nothing, his gaze fixed on the floor. Then he stood abruptly, muttering something about needing air, and disappeared into the kitchen. Elliot and Sam exchanged a glance, the silence between them heavy with unspoken questions. Elliot's eyes wandered the room, landing on a stack of papers tucked under a toolbox on the coffee table. Something about them felt out of place, too neat, too deliberate. He glanced toward the kitchen, where Tom's shadow moved behind the doorway, and quietly slid the papers out. They were letters, old and yellowed, addressed to Tom in a looping, unfamiliar handwriting. "Sam," Elliot whispered, his heart racing. "Look at this." Sam leaned over, his brow furrowing as he scanned the top letter. It was dated 15 years ago, from someone named Margaret. The words were faded but legible. "You can't keep running from this, Tom. She deserves to know the truth." Another letter, dated a year later, was sharper If you don't tell her, I will. This isn't just about you anymore. Who's Margaret? Sam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. And who's she? Before Elliot could answer, Tom reappeared, his face pale. What are you doing with those? He snapped, his voice low and dangerous. Elliot stood, holding the letters tightly. Who's Margaret? Tom. And what truth are you hiding? Tom's eyes flickered with something raw panic. Maybe. Or shame. Put those down, he said, his voice shaking. You don't know what you're messing with. Then tell us, Sam said, standing beside Elliot, his voice steady but laced with hurt. Dad, if this is about Lily, we need to know. Now. Tom sank into a chair, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of decades had finally caught up with him. It's not about Lily, he said, his voice barely audible. It's about me. And her mother. Elliot's heart stopped. Her mother. Lily was adopted. Her biological mother a distant figure they'd never met. Her identity sealed in the adoption papers. What do you know about her? Tom looked away, his jaw working. I knew her, he said finally. Margaret. She was someone I cared about. A long time ago. Before your mom. Sam. Before everything. The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in as the pieces began to fall into place. Elliot's mind raced, trying to connect Margaret to Lily, to Tom's fear, to the cries that seemed to carry a warning. What happened to her? He asked, his voice barely steady. Tom's eyes met his, and for the first time, Elliot saw not just fear, but a deep, aching guilt. She's gone, he said. But she left something behind. Something I swore I'd protect. Sam's voice was sharp, cutting through the haze. Protect? From what? Tom didn't answer, but his silence was louder than words. Elliot felt a chill settle in his bones, a certainty that whatever Tom was hiding, it was far bigger and far darker than they'd imagined. The air in Tom's living room felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding onto his secrets. Elliot clutched the letters, their brittle edges digging into his palms, while Sam stared at his father, his face a mix of betrayal and confusion. Tom's admission about Margaret hung between them, a half-truth that only deepened the mystery. Protect what? Dad? Sam asked again, his voice tight with frustration. You're talking in circles. If this is about Lily's mother, you need to start explaining. Tom rubbed his hands over his face, his shoulders hunched. It's not that simple, he muttered. You don't understand what I've been carrying all these years. Then make us understand, Elliot said, stepping closer, his voice firm but not unkind. Lily's our daughter. If there's something about her past, something that's making her react to you, we deserve to know. Tom's eyes flickered to the letters in Elliot's hand, and for a moment, he looked like he might snatch them away. Instead, he sighed, a sound so weary it seemed to come from his bones. Margaret was troubled, he said finally. She was young, younger than me. We met when I was working at a garage in Maryland, back in the 90s. She was bright, full of life, but she had demons. Addiction. Bad choices. I tried to help her, but I couldn't save her. Elliot's heart thudded. And Lily? How does she fit into this? Tom's gaze dropped to the floor. Margaret had a daughter. Not with me, but I was there when she was pregnant. I promised I'd look out for the kid if anything happened to her. But things went wrong. Margaret got worse, disappeared for a while. When she came back, She wasn't the same. The baby was gone, given up. She said. I never knew where. Sam's face paled. You think Lily's that baby? Tom nodded slowly, his voice barely a whisper. When you boys adopted her, I saw her picture in the agency file. Those eyes, they're Margaret's. I knew it the moment I saw her. Elliot's mind reeled, the pieces snapping together with dizzying speed. Lily's cries, Tom's unease. The letters had all pointed to a past that was clawing its way into their present. Why didn't you tell us? He asked, his voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear. If you knew who her mother was, why keep it a secret? Because I failed her, Tom snapped, his voice breaking. Margaret died, and I couldn't do a damn thing about it. I didn't want you boys dragged into my mess. But then I saw Lily, and he trailed off, his hands trembling. I couldn't stay away. Sam stood abruptly, pacing the room. This is insane. Dad, you're saying Lily's mom was someone you loved, and you never told us. What else are you hiding? Tom's silence was deafening, his eyes fixed on the floor as if it held the answers he couldn't give. Elliot's instincts screamed that there was more, something Tom wasn't saying. He glanced at the letters again, flipping to the next one. The words were stark, written in a hurried scrawl. He's looking for her. Tom, you have to keep her safe. Who's he? Elliot asked, holding up the letter. Who was Margaret afraid of? Tom's face went ashen, his hands clenching into fists. Nobody, he said, too quickly. It's old history. Doesn't matter now. It matters if it's why Lily's scared of you, Sam said, his voice low and dangerous. If there's someone out there who's a threat to her, you need to tell us. Right now. Tom stood, his movements jerky, like a man cornered. You're digging into things you don't understand, he said, his voice rising. Let it go, Sam. For your own good. But Elliot couldn't let it go. The fear in Tom's eyes, the cryptic warnings in the letters had all pointed to something bigger, something that could hurt Lily. He slipped the letters into his pocket, ignoring Tom's glare. We're not done here, he said. We're taking these, and we're going to figure this out. With or without you. They left Tom's house in silence, the letters burning a hole in Elliot's pocket. Back home, they pored over them, each one a fragment of a story that felt both distant and dangerously close. Margaret's words painted a picture of a woman on the run, haunted by someone she feared, someone who wanted her daughter. As they read, Claire called, her voice tight with worry. I didn't want to freak you out earlier, she said, but something weird happened today. When I took Lily to the park, there was this guy watching us. Not, like, casually, was staring. And when I looked at him, he took off. Elliot's blood ran cold. What did he look like? Tall, maybe 40s, dark hair, scar on his cheek, Claire said. I don't know. It just felt off. Sam's hand tightened around Elliot's, his face pale. Dad's hiding something, he said. And I think it's about this guy. That night, Elliot couldn't sleep, his mind racing with questions. Who was the man in the park? Was he the he Margaret feared? And why did Lily, their sweet, innocent daughter, seem to sense the danger before any of them? As he lay awake, listening to the soft hum of the baby monitor, he made a promise, whatever it took. He'd protect his family even if it meant uncovering truths that could tear them apart. The stranger in the park haunted Elliot's thoughts, his shadowed presence lurking like a storm cloud over their home. Claire's description: tall, scarred, Watching clung to him, a puzzle piece that didn't yet fit but felt vital. As he and Sam sat at their kitchen table, the letters spread out like evidence in a case. The weight of Tom's secrets pressed harder against them. "We need to know more about Margaret," Elliot said, his voice low to avoid waking Lily, who napped upstairs. If she was running from someone, and that someone's still out there, it could explain everything: Lily's cries, Tom's fear, all of it. Sam nodded, his eyes tired but resolute. "I'll call the adoption agency tomorrow. Maybe they can tell us something about her biological mother." "But Dad," he trailed off, his expression torn. "I can't believe he's kept this from us. All these years. And he knew." Elliot reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining. "He's scared, Sam. Whatever he's hiding, it's big enough to make him lie to his own son. We'll get the truth, but we have to be careful." The next day, Sam called the agency, his voice steady as he explained their need for information. The caseworker was sympathetic, but bound by protocol. Sealed records couldn't be opened without a court order. "I can tell you her name was Margaret Elaine Carter," the woman said. "That's all we can share unless you have legal grounds." It was a start, but it wasn't enough. Elliot turned to the internet, searching for Margaret Elaine Carter in Maryland, cross-referencing dates from the letters. Hours later, he found an obituary from 2010. Margaret Elaine Carter, 32, passed away unexpectedly in Baltimore. Survived by no known family. The cause of death was vague, complications from illness, but the timing lined up with Tom's story. She died just a year after Lily was born. "Sam, look at this," Elliot said, showing him the obituary. "It doesn't say much, but it confirms she existed. And if Tom was telling the truth about knowing her, he might know what happened to her." Sam's jaw tightened. "Then we go back to him. No more half answers." They drove to Tom's house that evening, leaving Lily with Claire again. The air was thick with tension as they knocked, and when Tom opened the door, his face was a mask of resignation. "Figured you'd be back," he said, stepping aside. This time, they didn't sit. Sam stood tall, his voice firm. "We found her obituary, Dad. Margaret Carter. She died in 2010. What happened to her? And who was she running from?" Tom's eyes widened, but he didn't deny it. Instead, he sank into a chair, his hands shaking. "You don't know what you're digging into," he said, his voice low. "Some things are better left buried." "Not when it's about our daughter," Elliot snapped, his patience fraying. "You said you promised to protect her." "From who?" "The guy Claire saw at the park. The one with the scar." Tom's head jerked up, his face draining of color. "What guy?" "Tall, dark hair, scar on his cheek," Sam said, watching his father closely. He was watching Lily. Claire saw him. Tom's hands gripped the arms of the chair, his knuckles white. "You need to keep her away from him," he said, his voice urgent. "He's dangerous. I didn't think he'd find her." "Who is he?" Elliot demanded, stepping closer. "No more secrets. Tom. Tell us." Tom's voice was barely a whisper. "His name's Victor. Victor Hayes. He was Margaret's partner, I guess you'd call it. But he wasn't good to her. He was controlling, violent. She left him when she got pregnant, said she didn't want him near her kid. But he never stopped looking for her." Elliot's heart pounded, the name searing into his mind. "And you think he's here? In Virginia?" Tom nodded, his eyes haunted. "I saw him a few months ago, Outside the hardware store. Didn't think much of it at first. But then I saw him again. Near your house. I didn't want to scare you boys. But I think he knows about Lily. The room spun, the weight of Tom's words crashing over them. Elliot's mind raced, piecing together the fragments: Margaret's fear, the letters, Lily's cries. Was Victor the reason their daughter sensed danger? Did she somehow carry the echoes of her mother's terror? We need to go to the police, Sam said, his voice shaking with anger. If this guy's a threat, we can't just sit here. Tom shook his head. You don't get it. Victor's not just some thug. He's got connections. People who owe him. If you go to the cops, he'll know. And he'll come for her. Elliot's stomach twisted, but he forced his voice to stay steady. Then what do we do, Tom? Hide. Run. We're not leaving our daughter in danger. Tom looked at them, his eyes filled with a desperation Elliot had never seen. I don't know, he admitted. But I'll help you. Whatever it takes. That night, back home, Elliot and Sam held each other tightly, Lily sleeping soundly between them. The fear was real now, a shadow with a name: Victor Hayes. But so was their resolve. They'd built their family against all odds, and they'd fight to keep it, no matter what darkness came their way. The name Victor Hayes hung over their home like a curse, turning every creak of the floorboards into a threat. Elliot and Sam barely slept, their nights spent watching the baby monitor, checking the locks, and scanning the street for any sign of the man with the scar. Lily, blissfully unaware, played and babbled, but her cries still erupted whenever Tom was near, a haunting reminder of the danger they couldn't see. They agreed to keep Tom close, despite the tension. His knowledge of Victor was their only lead, and his guilt-driven promise to help felt like their best defense. But trust was fragile, frayed by years of distance and the secrets he'd kept. We watch him, too, Elliot whispered to Sam one night, his voice fierce. He's part of this, whether he wants to be or not. The next morning, they invited Tom over, framing it as a chance to spend time with Lily. In truth, they wanted answer specifics about Victor, about Margaret, about anything that could keep their daughter safe. Tom arrived with a bag of groceries, his attempt at normalcy, but his eyes were wary, scanning the room as if expecting trouble. As Sam played with Lily on the living room floor, Elliot pulled Tom aside. Tell us everything you know about Victor, he said, his voice low. Where he might be, what he wants. No more holding back. Tom sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Victor was trouble from the start. He ran with a rough crowd: small-time dealers, loan sharks, that kind. Margaret met him at a bad time in her life, when she was struggling. He promised her the world, but all he gave her was fear. When she got pregnant, she knew she had to get out. She came to me for help, and I did what I could: gave her money, a place to stay for a while. But Victor never stopped looking for her. And the baby? Sam asked, looking up from where he knelt beside Lily. Did he know about her? Tom nodded, his face grim. He found out. Margaret was terrified he'd take her. That's why she gave her up, thought it was the only way to keep her safe. But Victor's not the type to let go. If he's here, he's after Lily. Elliot's chest tightened, the thought of someone hunting their daughter almost too much to bear. Why now? He asked. It's been years. Why come for her now? Tom hesitated, his eyes darting away. I don't know, he said, but the lie was obvious, a crack in his voice that made Elliot's skin prickle. You're still not telling us everything, Sam said, standing, his voice sharp. What else? Dad, what aren't you saying? Before Tom could answer, Lily let out a sharp cry, her tiny hands reaching for Sam. They all froze, the sound cutting through the tension like a blade. Elliot's eyes flicked to the window, where a shadow moved just a flicker, gone as quickly as it appeared. His heart pounded. Did you see that? Sam was at the window in an instant, peering into the dusk. Nothing, he said, but his voice was tight. Maybe a neighbor. Tom's face was pale, his hands clenched. You need to be careful, he said, his voice urgent. If he's watching, he's planning something. That night, they installed a cheap security camera at the front door, its grainy feed offering little comfort. Elliot couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that Victor was closer than they realized. He and Sam took turns staying awake, their love for each other and Lily the only thing keeping them grounded. The next day, Claire called, her voice trembling. I saw him again, she said. At the grocery store this time. He was in the parking lot, just sitting in his car, watching me. I didn't have Lily with me, thank God, but I think he knows who I am. Elliot's blood ran cold. Did you get a license plate? Anything we can use? I tried, Claire said. It was too far. But I'm sure it was him, scar on his cheek, just like before. Sam's face was a mask of fury and fear. We're not waiting for him to make a move, he said. We need to find him before he finds us. They turned to Tom again, demanding he tell them where Victor might be. Reluctantly, he gave them a lead-in old bar in Richmond where Victor used to hang out, a dive called the Rusty Anchor. He might still go there, Tom said. But you can't just walk in. He's got friends, people who'd tip him off. Elliot didn't care. The thought of Victor out there, watching their daughter, was a fire in his veins. We're not sitting ducks, he said. We go tomorrow. Together. As they planned, Elliot's mind kept returning to Lily's cries, her tiny body reacting to a danger she couldn't name. Was it instinct? Some primal connection to her mother's fear? Or was it something deeper? Something tied to Tom's guilt and Victor's shadow? Whatever it was, Elliot knew one thing. They'd face it as a family, no matter how dark the truth turned out to be. The Rusty Anchor was a squat, grimy bar on the edge of Richmond, its neon sign flickering like a dying star. Elliot and Sam parked a block away, their hearts pounding as they scanned the lot for any sign of Victor. The plan was simple: observe, gather information, and get out. But the weight of what they were walking into made every step feel like a gamble. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and the low hum of conversation. The patrons were a mix of weathered locals and rough-looking men who eyed them warily. Elliot's stomach churned, but he kept his expression neutral, his hand brushing Sam's for reassurance. They ordered beers and sat at a corner table, their eyes scanning the room. Tom had stayed behind with Claire and Lily, a decision they'd debated fiercely. He's not safe to be around her, Elliot had argued, but Sam insisted they needed someone who knew Victor's face. Reluctantly, they'd agreed, but not without Claire promising to keep her phone on and the doors locked. As they sipped their beers, Elliot's gaze landed on a man at the bar tall. Dark hair, a jagged scar cutting across his left cheek. His heart stopped. Sam, he whispered, nodding toward the man. Is that him? Sam's eyes narrowed, his body tensing. I don't know, but he fits the description. They watched as the man, Victor, laughed with the bartender, his movements casual but his eyes sharp, scanning the room like a predator. Elliot's instincts screamed to run, but they needed answers. They needed to know what Victor wanted with Lily. After an hour, Victor left, slipping into a black sedan. Sam memorized the license plate, scribbling it on a napkin. "We've got something," he said, his voice low but triumphant. "Let's get out of here." Back home, they called Claire, who confirmed Lily was safe but restless. "She's been crying on and off," Claire said. "Tom's trying to help, but it's like she knows something's wrong." Elliot's heart ached at the thought of Lily's distress, but the license plate gave them a lead. They contacted a friend of Sam's, a private investigator named Mike, who owed him a favor. Mike promised to run the plate and dig into Victor Hayes, but warned them to stay cautious. "Guys like this don't play nice," he said. "If he's after your kid, he's not going to stop." The next day, Mike called back with a hit. The car was registered to a Victor Allen Hayes, 42, with a rap sheet that included assault and drug charges. He'd been in and out of jail, his last known address a rundown apartment in Baltimore. But Mike's voice grew grim as he added, "There's something else. He's been asking around about a Kita girl, about a year old. He's been showing a picture. It's Lily." Elliot's world tilted, the phone trembling in his hand. "How does he know her?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "I don't know," Mike said. "But he's got a vendetta. My guess. He thinks she's his." The words hit like a punch. Lily, their daughter, caught in the crosshairs of a man who might believe he had a claim to her. Elliot looked at Sam, whose face was a storm of fear and fury. "We need to confront Tom," Sam said. "He knows more than he's saying." They called Tom over, their voices cold as they demanded the full truth. Tom sat heavily on their couch, his hands clasped tightly. "Victor thinks Lily's his daughter," he admitted, his voice breaking. "Margaret never told him for sure, but he was convinced. When she gave the baby up, he went crazy, thought I had something to do with it. He's been looking for her ever since." "Why didn't you tell us?" Sam shouted, his voice raw. "You let us bring her into our lives without warning us." "I thought it was over," Tom said, his eyes desperate. "I thought he'd given up. I didn't want to lose you boys. Or Lily. I thought I could keep her safe." Elliot's mind raced, the pieces falling into place. Lily's cries weren't just about Tom's presence, they were about the shadow of Victor, a danger she sensed instinctively. "We're not losing her," he said, his voice fierce. "Not to him, not to anyone." That night, as they held Lily close, her tiny hand gripping Sam's finger, Elliot felt a fire ignite within him. They'd built their family on love, against all odds, and no one, not Victor, not Tom's secrets, would tear it apart. But the danger was closer than ever, and they were running out of time. The revelation that Victor believed Lily was his daughter turned their home into a fortress of fear. Every noise outside, a car passing, a branch scraping the window, sent Elliot's heart racing. Sam installed extra locks and kept the blinds drawn, but the sense of being hunted lingered, a shadow they couldn't shake. They agreed to keep Lily close, canceling playdates and avoiding public places. Claire moved in temporarily, her presence a comfort, but also a reminder of the danger. Her encounter with Victor at the grocery store still haunted her. "I keep seeing his face," she admitted one night, her voice trembling. Those eyes, they were cold, like he was planning something. Elliot and Sam decided to take their evidence to the police, despite Tom's warnings. They couldn't wait for Victor to make a move. At the station, they met Detective Ramirez, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor. She listened as they explained Lily's cries, Tom's secrets, and Victor's criminal history, her pen scratching notes as they spoke. "You've got a lot of pieces here," Ramirez said, her tone measured. "But no direct evidence of a threat. A guy watching from a distance isn't enough for an arrest. Do you have anything concrete, texts, voicemails, anything showing he's targeting your daughter?" Elliot handed over the napkin with the license plate and the letters from Margaret. "These show she was scared of him," he said. "And Tom Sam's father says Victor's been looking for Lily. That's not a coincidence." Ramirez nodded, her expression unreadable. "I'll run the plate and look into Hayes. If he's got a record, we can pull him in for questioning. But you need to stay vigilant. Don't confront him yourselves. Guys like this thrive on escalation." Back home, the waiting was agony. Elliot couldn't stop picturing Victor's scarred face, his cold eyes fixed on Lily. He and Sam took shifts watching the security camera feed, their nerves frayed by every passing car. Tom came over daily, his guilt palpable, but his presence only made Lily cry harder, her wails a constant reminder of the danger tied to his past. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Claire was in the kitchen making dinner while Elliot and Sam played with Lily. The baby monitor crackled, and Lily's soft coos turned to a sharp, panicked cry. Elliot bolted upstairs, his heart in his throat, but found her safe in her crib, her tiny face red with distress. "She's okay," he called down, but his voice shook. Something felt wrong, a prickle of intuition he couldn't ignore. He checked the camera feed on his phone, his breath catching as he saw a figure linger near their mailbox, a tall man, his face obscured by a hood. The scar was unmistakable. "Sam!" Elliot shouted, his voice raw. "He's here." Sam was at his side in an instant, his face pale as he stared at the screen. "That's him," he whispered. "Victor." Claire grabbed her phone, her hands trembling. "I'm calling 911, she said, already dialing. "Stay with Lily." As Claire spoke to the dispatcher, her voice steady despite her fear, Elliot overheard something that made his blood run cold. She was describing Victor, the car, the way he'd been watching, but then she paused, her eyes widening. "Wait," she said into the phone. "I just remembered, when I saw him at the store, he dropped something. A photo. It was Lily." The words hit Elliot like a freight train. Victor wasn't just watching, had proof. A picture of their daughter, a tangible link to his obsession. Sam's face was a mask of fury, his hands clenched. "He's not getting near her," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Not ever." Minutes later, the police arrived, their lights flashing silently in the dusk. Ramirez was among them, her expression grim. "We've got units looking for him," she said. "But he's slippery. Stay inside. Keep your doors locked. We'll do everything we can." As the police searched the neighborhood, Elliot and Sam held Lily close, her tiny body warm against theirs. They'd faced prejudice, doubt, and countless obstacles to build their family. But this was different, a primal threat that tested their strength in ways they'd never imagined. They didn't know if Victor was still out there, waiting, but they knew one thing: they'd fight for Lily with everything they had. The police search stretched into the night, their radios crackling as they swept the neighborhood for Victor. Elliot and Sam stayed locked inside, Lily cradled between them, her soft breaths a fragile anchor against the storm of fear. Claire sat by the window, her eyes scanning the street, while Tom paced the living room, his guilt a heavy presence no one could ignore. Detective Ramirez called with an update just past midnight. "We found his car abandoned a few miles away," she said, her voice clipped. "No sign of Hayes, but we're pulling prints and checking local cameras. He's not getting far. But the words offered little comfort. Victor was still out there, a shadow with a purpose, and every moment he was free felt like a countdown. Elliot's mind kept replaying Claire's words. The photo of Lily dropped like a taunt. How had Victor found her? And why was he so certain she was his? As dawn broke, Tom sat them down, his face etched with exhaustion. "There's something else," he said, his voice low. "Margaret, she never told Victor the baby wasn't his. She let him believe it, thought it'd keep him away. But it only made him angrier. When she gave Lily up, he blamed me, thought I'd helped her hide the kid." Sam's eyes blazed. "So this is your fault? You let him think Lily was his, and now he's after her." "I didn't know he'd find her," Tom said, his voice breaking. "I thought she was safe, that the adoption was sealed. I thought I could protect her by staying quiet." Elliot's heart ached, torn between anger at Tom's secrecy and pity for his regret. "You should have told us," he said quietly. "But we're here now, and we're not letting him near her." The day passed in a blur of tension, the house a fortress of locked doors and drawn blinds. Claire took Lily to her room to nap, her fierce protectiveness a mirror of Elliot and Sam's. But as evening fell, the baby monitor crackled again, and Claire's voice came through, sharp with panic. "Guys, get up here. Now." They raced upstairs, finding Claire holding Lily, her face pale. "I heard something," she whispered. "Outside her window. Like someone was there." Sam grabbed a baseball bat from the closet, his hands steady despite the fear in his eyes. Elliot checked the camera feed, his heart stopping as he saw a figure slip past the backyard fence. Victor, unmistakable even in the grainy footage. "He's here," he said, his voice hoarse. "Claire, call Ramirez. Now." As Claire dialed, Elliot and Sam barricaded the nursery door, their bodies shielding Lily. The house was silent except for the pounding of their hearts and Lily's soft whimpers. Then, a crash glass shattering downstairs. Victor was inside. Sam gripped the bat, his face set. "Stay with Lily," he told Elliot, his voice low. "I'll handle this." "No," Elliot said, grabbing his arm. "We do this together." They crept downstairs, the bat heavy in Sam's hands, Elliot's phone ready to call for backup. The living room was dark, the back door's glass pane shattered, cold air seeping in. A shadow moved in the kitchen, and Elliot's breath caught as Victor stepped into view, his scar glinting in the moonlight. "Where is she?" Victor's voice was low, menacing. "I know she's here." "She's not yours," Sam said, stepping forward, the bat raised. "Get out, or I swear." Victor laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You think you can keep her from me? She's mine. Margaret took her, but I found her." Elliot's heart pounded, but he stepped beside Sam, his voice steady. "You're wrong. She's our daughter. And you're not taking her." Before Victor could respond, sirens wailed outside, lights flashing through the windows. Ramirez's voice boomed through a megaphone. "Victor Hayes, you're surrounded. Come out with your hands up." Victor's eyes darted to the door, panic flickering across his face. For a moment, Elliot thought he'd fight, but then he bolted, crashing through the back door as police swarmed the yard. Shouts and footsteps echoed, and minutes later, Ramirez appeared, her face grim but triumphant. "We've got him," she said. "He's in custody." Relief flooded Elliot. his knees weak as he pulled Sam into a fierce embrace. Upstairs, Lily's cries softened, as if she sensed the danger had passed. Claire brought her down, tears in her eyes, and they all held each other, a family unbroken despite the storm. In the days that followed, Victor was charged with stalking and breaking and entering. His obsession with Lily laid bare in court. Tom, racked with guilt, swore to make amends, spending time with Lily in small, careful steps, her cries easing as the shadow of fear lifted. Elliot and Sam rebuilt their sense of safety, their love for each other and their daughter stronger than ever. Lily's laughter filled their home again, a reminder of the life they'd fought for, a life built on love, resilience, and the courage to face the truth, no matter how dark. They'd stared into the abyss and come out whole, their family a testament to the power of choosing each other every single day.